Harry's House is the third solo album by Harry Styles, who is one of the biggest musicians out there right now, the best member of One Direction, and just an absolutely stunning artist. I have really enjoyed almost everything Harry has done up to this point. I think his debut album is absolutely phenomenal. I think it is one of the best debuts of the past decade for sure, if not of the past 20 years. I think that album is fantastic. And Fine Line, although I feel very mixed on it, I think that it does feature some of his best songs and just some amazing moments here. But I was very excited going into this album, although I was a little bit nervous because obviously those first two albums have very different styles. I think that the debut one has a more alternative style to it, and that's probably why I like it more, considering, the music I typically like, and a lot of people will be surprised that I'm reviewing this, but I really do enjoy Harry Styles, and that's not just because my girlfriend is obsessed with him and has been forever. But Fine Line took a much more pop approach, and that is why I don't like it as much, just because a ton of the songs are very throwaway, but it has some just phenomenal songs at times. Cherry is a massive one that I just think is one of the best things he's done, and still I think that Falling is another one that everybody seems to love, and they should. That song is fantastic. But anyway, let's talk about Harry's House. We have finally been let in. There are 13 songs on this album, and it is 42 minutes long. So the first album was, I think, 40 minutes. Fine Line was 47. This one's 42. So they're all very similar here. And what did I think, just kind of overall, before I dive into the track list, I thought this album was very, very good. I think that this quite possibly has his best slow song. Actually, yeah, it definitely has his best slow song here. My favorite song by him is still Kiwi, but look at what I listen to that song. I think that one's a little bit obvious, but I think his best written song is on this album. I think that there are so many songs here which just blew me away. I had an idea of what the album was going to sound like, at least when I went into it. I was like, okay, I assume this, but it totally threw me for a loop here. There are songs that, sure, at times feel a bit mixed up, and something will go from something really emotional and slow to some like big funky beat, but it makes sense when you listen to it in the context, I think, more so of like the vinyl record with side A and side B, because there's one really big change between Matilda and Cinema, where Matilda is this very slow, fantastic song, and then Cinema just is like this funky upbeat song, but Matilda ends off side 1 and Cinema starts off side B. So stuff like that makes sense. And there are things with this album that I am a little bit iffy on. I think that after I listen to it a few more times, because remember, I've just listened to this once. It's almost 1 a.m. It's 12:57 a.m. right now. I just listened to the album at 12 o'clock. Okay, so this is just one listen. I think that some of the songs are not mixed the best, if that makes sense. You guys, kind of the more musical people, whatever you want to say, will kind of understand what I mean. But sometimes other things will be too quiet in the mix, like the drums on one song or the drum machine, whatever. Or sometimes the harmonies feel a little bit overproduced. And that's not at all me saying that Harry Styles can't sing, because god damn it, that guy can sing. He has one of the best voices right now. Of the past 20 years, he has one of the best voices, which I think has only really shined on his solo stuff, because One Direction is One Direction, whatever. You think whatever you want of them. But there are plenty of moments here where I felt like his vocals were the best when everything around it was kind of stripped down and just away from it. When it felt like just him singing over a simple beat or a kind of slow little chord progression, it really worked the best. His voice sounds good throughout the entire thing, but there are definitely some times where it does feel a little bit overproduced, and some of the sounds in the back can be a little bit distracting at times. So that's what I mean with the mixing. But again, I don't really think there's anything bad about this album. I don't think there's a single bad song in here like there is on Fine Line, and the first album there isn't a bad song, but Fine Line does have a few which I really don't like, and no, it's not just Watermelon Sugar. But this album, I think from start to finish, is consistent. I think all the songs are good. Again, they are kind of mixed a little bit weirdly in like the order of it, but when thinking back on it, it makes sense a bit. the little jumps here. I think it proves his range really well, and this album is also ended off so well. I think that's, if I had like just one thing to talk about with the debut album, it said the final song is by far the weakest one there and kind of ends it off on a different note from what you expect, but Fine Lines ending is just, that one's fantastic. And this one is possibly even better as a song, maybe not as like an album closer, but like as a song, I think I liked it more. And I mean, the other musicians who played on this album, again, I don't know any of them. I don't know their names, so please let me know them down below. I don't know if, I feel like some were drum machines, but some were actual drummers, and the guitar work on Harry's albums is always super underrated. As a guitarist, that's one of the things I noticed, but there's some pretty amazing guitar moments here that probably won't be talked about, but they should have been, and the bass is very prominent in a lot of the songs, and of course I love that. I think that his voice really fits well with kind of a heavy, kind of thumping, not heavy, but you know, like a, I don't know, a more prominent bass sound. That's really just all I say. I don't really know how to explain that perfectly, but let's go into the track list because there's lots I want to talk about. So it opens up with Music for a Sushi Restaurant, which when I first read the track list, like before listening to it when it was released, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I was like, okay, I assume this will be like an instrumental, but it really isn't. Again, it's very bass heavy, which I love, and I love the build up here. It's kind of like the perfect opening to an album of this style, which just kind of spans a few genres, obviously pop, but a little bit alternative, a little bit of indie, if that makes sense, on some of the middle songs. And the EQ on the backing vocals here is a little bit off and kind of distracts, at least me as a listener, but it's just a really fun song and it sounds great. And there's a lot of lines here that really get stuck in your head. You know I love you, babe. Late Night Talking follows this one up, and don't get mad at me, but there are parts of this song and honestly other parts of the album that reminded me of Bo Burnham, and you know, maybe that's because I'm a big fan and have been since, I don't know, just over a year ago. And I don't just mean Inside, but there are definitely times where it sounded like a few other things from Inside. But this album definitely, at least at this point, started to go in that like more poppy approach, and that did worry me a little bit because of course I didn't like Fine Line as much as the debut album, but you'll see how it kind of ends up going. But this song is a little bit crowded with just random noises here, but again, it's a radio-friendly pop song that gets stuck in your head, and these, at least for me, are really not the standouts of the album, so it may seem like I'm kind of giving them a little bit of hate, but trust me, later on there are some great songs. These ones are not bad. They're good, they're passable, and they'll get better the more I listen to it. Same thing with Grapejuice. 1, 2, 3. It starts with that very breathy countdown, which I really like. I hope I didn't blow that out. But this one takes a complete left turn here, sharp left, with some really interesting choices, I think. I don't exactly know if I love them, but I also don't hate them. I think they're all right. It's cool to see, but you have Harry, and majority of the song is like EQ'd vocals. And if you don't know what that means, it's this sound right here. It's obviously it won't match it, but it's kind of this different lower quality sound that is obviously done and processed, which is totally okay. I always really like EQ vocals. But one thing I really like about this song is that it feels different from those first two. It doesn't just feel like, oh, here's another pop song that you can listen to and then not think too much about, maybe the odd line here, but it doesn't really have a build up in the chorus, and that's what keeps your attention. You're waiting for something to happen because you come to expect that with songs like this, but I like how it subverts your expectations. And the beat stays like steady throughout. It's kind of this faster beat, but the vocals slow down, and it creates like this push and pull effect that really kind of draws the listener in. I love that. Now, As It Was is a song that by now I bet a lot of you have heard. If not the whole song, you've probably heard the you know, that part, and it could easily be passed off as a catchy, upbeat, happy sounding pop song that you can play on the radio a million times and a lot of people will be dancing to, and that's definitely true. But what you really have to do is look into the lyrics here. I think that verse 2 is a really big standout. When I first reacted to the song, you know, I thought it was good enough, but it did worry me a little bit. But the more I listen to the song, I think it's great. But that second verse has always stood out to me. I think that, you know, it's not subtle or anything, but it doesn't have to be. It really just works, and more people have kind of analyzed it on the internet, so I won't go into that because I don't know too much about that stuff with Harry Styles specifically. But when I heard that, I was like, okay, he's talking about some deeper stuff over this like exciting kind of, as I said, not generic, but very popular sound that a lot of artists nowadays use. And I always really appreciate when music sounds pretty happy, but the lyrics and stuff are a little bit more sad. I'm wearing a CARR shirt. They're one of my favorite bands, and I think they're a prime example of that. Not that I'm comparing the two, but when you take something like that, I think it works. And this song gets better the more you listen to it, and if you don't love it, I can see why. I am a little bit worried that it will become the watermelon sugar of this album, but I think with the rest of the songs coming out now, people will start to listen to them more and kind of maybe get sick of it, but I mean, that's up to you. Again, there might be a little too much autotune here, and the only reason I mention something like autotune, I mention it for someone like Harry Styles because I know he can sing, so I'm just like, why are you using autotune? Because I know you can sing, but it's obviously not his choice. It's whoever's producing it and mixing it and stuff, so I'm not going to blame him at all, and I don't know who mixes and produces, so I don't really know what the choice was here. But after the first chorus, there's this little like instrumental break, but it's really quiet in the mix and very like compressed in a way. And it reminded me a lot of Happier Than Ever by Billie Eilish. You know, that kind of, when the song builds up and then, you know, all this stuff comes and you hear a bit of like the screaming and stuff, it sounded a lot like that. And I love Billie Eilish, so I really appreciate that. Again, I don't think it's anything like copyrighted or any of that. I just think the sound of that nowadays is really cool. It definitely wouldn't have worked back 30, 40 years ago, but nowadays in the context of this song, it's really, really cool. Little Freak was something that I was very interested in when I read the title for this. I was like, okay, I heard that this album is definitely more steamy. I think that's probably a word I can say on YouTube and not get anything for, but this is what I expected the whole album to sound like, but I'm also glad it didn't because I really like this song. I think this is probably in the top half of like the better songs on this album. Again, they're all good, but this one is a standout here because it has this really cool finger picking guitar thing, which is much better than that final song on what's it called, the debut album. I think that, you know, I'll talk about that one in a different video, but it's just very smooth and stuff, but the lyrics are so profound, and that third verse really feels like a deep cut into his life that we haven't seen before in this way. Now let's talk about it. Matilda. Holy, Matilda is the best written Harry Styles song, I think. My favorite is Kiwi, but this is the best song he has ever written and possibly will ever write for someone who hasn't exactly been in the situation that this song deals with. I know, and I'm very close to a lot of people who are, so I've heard lots. Again, it will definitely hit you if you've had family problems, especially very major ones. And I'm not going to go into specifics with any of the people I know, but this song will just wreck you. Like, this is like a freaking Titanic of a song. This song is so amazing. It's a really kind of weird intro. It sounds like almost slap harmonics on a guitar, if that makes sense. Like you're playing natural harmonics, but they're also like slapping the guitar, like acoustic guitar. But it's kind of cool because it grabs your attention right away. But I could honestly make an entire 30-minute video talking about this song. The lyrics are deep, and it feels like he is speaking directly to people who have gone through this problem, this situation, whatever you want to say. And by the bridge, I mean, it comes full circle. It is phenomenal. This is the best song Harry has ever written. And one big thing I do want to go on a tiny little rant about is the fact that this song is only written by a few people. Now, there are other songs on here that are written by like 7 people. And for me, you know, that kind of says something about the song, that you need 7 people, not Harry Styles, but that makes a song kind of come off a little bit more generic. But when you only have 2 or 3 people, I think it was 3 people that wrote this song, it's, you know, stripped back, raw, and exactly what you need for this album, and the perfect ending to side A. Now, starting off side B is a very interesting song. This is Cinema, and maybe, again, I'm a little bit more biased because, you know, obviously, but when listening to it on Apple Music, which I listen to it on, it is definitely a jarring change in it, but if you have to take the time to go out, think about the song you just listened to, and to follow up the last song, it's just like impossible. Flip your vinyl, put it on, and kind of wait for it to start. I can see why it makes sense. You know, it's a different side to the album here, and although jarring, as I said, this is a very fun song. It's very funky. Again, it's very different from what I've heard from him, and I think that's what I like. This album is more experimental than expected. I was kind of thinking earlier when I was thinking about this album, I was like, do I want it to be experimental? And it's definitely not in the way of what you typically think of when you think of experimental, but this song was really cool. I think it's a very sweet song, and the chorus really gets stuck in your head. Yes, it's repeated a lot, but come on, it really gets stuck in your head, and it's really cool. Although I will say the ending is a little bit repetitive. Daydreaming features one thing that I think no other person will talk about in the reviews, and that is the drumming. Again, I'm not sure who played the drums or if it was a drum machine. I think that it depends on the song, but I do feel like the drumming here was real, and nobody will give whoever the drummer is credit. Again, tell me in the comments down below, but it really is amazing, and for me, really stood out on this album. But again, this one does become a very radio-friendly, generic, kind of easily disposable song in a way. Not bad, but just nothing that really sticks with me. If I think of the lyrics, I can really only think of the chorus, but again, 7 people wrote this song, so that explains it. If you want to hear me talk more about that, just let me know in the comments down below, and I'll explain more in depth what I mean in a different video. This song is good, but not one of the best on the album. From the opening moments of Keep Driving, I thought it sounded like something from Fine Line, but I don't mean that in a bad way. It sounded like one of the better songs on Fine Line, in my opinion, and by the end, it definitely goes for some interesting and very kinky lines that I heard this album was more sensual in a way, and this song is definitely a prime example of that, with some really cool lyrics. And I think that the simple beat in the background is perfectly placed because it doesn't distract you from the lyrics, and that is why you can use simple beats. I will never complain if you have a whole album and only a few songs have a simple beat. I really don't care, because the song is not about the beat in the back. It is about the lyrics, and the background beat does not distract you from the lyrics. And that's why I think this song is one of the better mixes on the entire album, because you clearly hear the vocals and your brain automatically focuses on them. And the lyrics are really cool and kinky. Now, Satellite is another one that I feel like I could talk a lot about. This is one of my favorite ones on the entire album. From the opening, I felt like this is speaking to me. Again, I can't exactly relate to some of the stuff in Matilda, but there's a lot of stuff in this song that I can really relate to. I don't think I'll go too in depth with it, but the whole song deals with the idea of being there for someone, but waiting for them to be there for you. And I've gone through that a lot in the past, and I'm glad to say that I'm not really in that situation anymore. I love my girlfriend and a lot of the people around me, and this song, you know, it reminded me of all that stuff, and it felt like Harry was speaking to me. And I think that that is probably the best thing any artist could do, despite their genre, whatever, if they're singing, speaking, screaming, anything, lyrics that feel like they're speaking directly to you. That's one of the best things. This album is very different from what I expected, and songs like this is, you know, they're, I don't really know the word to describe them. It's not like they come out of left field, but every time I listen to them, I feel just safer with them. And this part of the video might not be edited as much, but this one is definitely one of the best on the album, and one that will be on repeat for probably a month. And also, he proves that he can still reach that higher register. I've seen a lot of videos recently talking about how he can't, but this song proves he can, don't worry. Boyfriends is a song that I heard clips of from, I think, Coachella or whatever it was recently. My girlfriend sent me them, and I thought it was really good, but as a boyfriend to a massive Harry Styles fan, or stan, whatever you want to call her, I feel like I shouldn't have an opinion on this. I feel like I'm not allowed an opinion, so I'll keep it short. This is probably in the top 3, if not the top 5 of the album. The lyrics are just fantastic. Again, it's better when it's just stripped back vocals over this great melody in the background, and it really gets stuck in your head. The lyrics are very moving, but I feel like as a boyfriend, this song, you know, I'm not a boyfriend like they talk about in the song, but it's not a song for me, and I don't mind that. I think that the right people will find this song and they will really appreciate that, and I think that's why Harry did it. And I love him for that. Before I end my thoughts on boyfriends, I did write in my notes here that it'll probably be the Sweet Creature and Cherry of Harry's House. You have Sweet Creature from the debut and Cherry from Fine Line. I think that Boyfriends is those two for this album, and I love that. And finally, we have Love of My Life. No, it is not a cover of the classic Queen song. This is a completely original song. I'm not sure exactly how many people wrote it, but the opening line here felt like an electric wave just went through my body. I mean, the synth in this song is so powerful, and it's mixed in Dolby Atmos on Apple Music. Again, I'm not sure about Spotify, and I of course listened to it through headphones, and it just adds this big intensity and weight to the song, and that is exactly what the closer of an album needs. Now this one definitely takes the Fine Line approach, which I much prefer, to the debut album approach of closing out the album with the biggest and most grand song here. That's really how you bring at least a Harry Styles album to a close, with dealing with all these themes of loss and changing your life, and it's so different from, you know, what it was before and as it was, and how you can deal with your problems in a healthy and safe way, and it will get better on a song like Matilda and stuff. This song just kind of feels like it encapsulates a lot of that, and I do think it is, again, one of the best ones on the album, definitely in the top 5, and the vocals are so good. I feel like in this video I haven't talked about it enough, but Harry's vocals are amazing. Yes, I am still mad that he has not released Medicine, because that's one of his best songs, but maybe one day. I don't think that it exactly holds the same power as a song like Fine Line from the album Fine Line, obviously, but it doesn't need to, because this album shows that you can write shorter songs. I mean, I think the longest song on this album, let me just check here quickly, they really aren't that long. Yeah, the longest song here is 4 minutes and 6 seconds, and most of them are under 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So it proves that you can do so much with so little if you're Harry Styles and you're very talented. I love this song, and I really, really love this entire album. Harry's House is a step up from his previous album, but does not surpass the debut. These are the most personal lyrics we've heard from him, especially on songs like Matilda, Satellite, and Love of My Life. I'll admit some songs don't stick with you as much as you'd expect them to, but I can always listen to it again. Harry's vocals absolutely shine when they feel unrestrained, and all the emotion just pours out of him. If you are a Harry Styles fan, I know you'll love it. I'm going to give Harry's House a 4 out of 5. I'm interested to know what you guys think of this album. I think that maybe at times it'll be a little bit polarizing. I think that there'll be some songs that people agree on that are amazing, like the ones I mentioned, and soon I will have a ranking of his 3 albums. I know I always promise these videos and I never really do them, but this one I will definitely do, and I'll probably do something cool with my girlfriend, because Harry Styles is someone I haven't talked about on here, and maybe that's just because a lot of my viewers won't like him and will just dismiss his music, but he writes some amazing lyrics. He is a phenomenal singer. Go check this album out if you are interested, and let me know your favorite song from it, moment, everything like that down below, and thank you all for watching. I will see you guys next time. Over and out.